So for whatever mysterious reason, you decided to learn KDB. Most of the time it is job requirements. You might use it in school. Maybe you would like to process data faster and better than anyone else. Whatever your motivation is, you're welcome over here. I use KDB for years. I like to share my personal experiences with you. We decipher in KDB 15 minutes at the time. Like every journey in our life, we start with Dr. Google. We're going to type download KDB for Linux, and it's going to bring us exactly where we want, into KX Link. KX is a company that own and distribute KDB, and the first link, installing KDB Plus, exactly what we need. It's going to bring us to the step one, download. Clicking on this link will not download actual application, but it will bring you to a choice. And we're going to choose between 32-bit or 64-bit. For Linux purposes, we have to use 64-bit. That's why we're going to click on the 64-bit, and it's going to bring us the software license agreement. And we're going to read every single word of this agreement in very fast pace. We're going to accept it, and it's going to bring us to the form. In the form, we're going to fill major information: your first name, last name, your company. If you don't have any company, please make it up. I hope KX will forgive us. I live in United States of America. Very simple. I'm not gonna give phone for this video. I really kind of prefer contacted by email. So if you have any feedback, you like it, you hate it, you think it was very useful, or you wasted 15 minutes of your life that you're not gonna ever get back, please send to this email address. It's actual email address. And finally, purpose, we're gonna put learning. And once form is completed, we're going to submit it. Submit will not download the files, but it will send you email like this. Usually get it within several seconds, sometimes within several minutes. We're going to open email, and email contain two very important downloads that you need. First, you need execution and library files to run Linux. It's only two files, and clicking on Linux will download zip with those files. And second one is license. In order to run KDB, you need license. Let's open and take a look what's in a zip file. And as I said, it's a two file, QK. We're going to take a look at this file later on, and Q. So those three files, QK, Q, and license, is more than enough in order to run a basic KDB application, KDB instance. And now we came to the most exciting and most challenging step, is transferring those downloaded files to the Linux environment. There are several ways how we can transfer file from desktop to the AWS environment or any other Linux environment, wherever you have. If you can SSH, you can transfer using WinSCP. WinSCP act over port 22, so it doesn't require any additional outbound or inbound port open. It doesn't require any additional configuration. You log in very similar way how you SSH into server. Here are the two files that we need to transfer. We simply just gonna copy them, and let's go to our environment. Here they are. That's it. We're ready to install KDB instance. We need to unzip our L64 file. I don't know why PK. Not using any fancy extension. Installation files are there, so let's take a look. And here we go. We're ready to actually start Q instance. And KDB instance is running. We actually install it. It's in interactive mode. It's over default port, but nevertheless, it's up and running. And if I would like to simply use it for something functional but completely useless. Here it is. KDB is installed. To get out of interactive mode, it's two double backslashes and we're out. Now, most of the time you would like specify port to run KDB, and most of the time you would like to run it as a daemon, as a service. To do this, we will need like a couple simple steps. /p will give you specification of the port, and I'm gonna pick something memorable, 1492. It's a year when Columbus bumped into Caribbean islands and discovered Caribbean vacation. And if we do this, we again started KDB in interactive mode, not the most desirable way, but again, functional. And we can see that it's up and running. If you would like to access KDB from your desktop, probably interactive mode, although some people prefer to do it this way, I prefer to use client. The client that I use called QPad. In next section of the video, I'm going to open QPad and connect to this instance. Where do we start when we need something? Of course, Dr. Google. So we're going to download QPad. And that's exactly what we would like to be. Download QPad. So there are options, x86, x64. We download it on the Windows desktop. So we're going to select x64. And in order to download and run QPad, all we need just to unzip it. Now, where to unzip it? And that's an important question. Your probably initial instinct will select program files. I would prefer to put it in the program files as well. But program files contain space in its path. And QPad, for whatever reason, very sensitive to this space. That's why it's probably going to malfunction. At least it's malfunctional in my case. So in order to download, I create a directory in the root called QPad and download it and place over there. So let's extract it. And QPad is installed. Now, warning, when QPad is going to be launched, it's going to give you initial launch. It's going to give you a warning. I use QPad for years. I never had any problem with this application, so I'm not going to be afraid. You do whatever you select to do, but I'm not have any concern about QPad. I'm going to start it. Here it is. Here is the warning. More info. I'm going to run it anyway, and it's going to bring us to the QPad, kind of like launching pad. And we need to add server, so I'm gonna right click on the KDB server plus. Now, one of the piece of information is optional. Name is just a label. Don't delete this tick. Later on you will understand how important this tick in KDB. And the name, I'm going to call it test server. And we need to provide two pieces of information. One of them is server, one of them is port. We did not set up login and a password yet. So the server is a public IP address of your Linux instance. And port is a port that we set it on, right? Set it up on. Whatever it is. It's 1492. Now, very important point. Make sure that inbound rule allow to communicate from your desktop to your server through port 1492. There is no way to avoid it. One way or another, you need the channel to communicate between your client and your desktop. For AWS, there is a kind of like very convenient form. Let me just find it. And that allow you to set up rules. So I add 1492 for communication from practically anywhere. I'm doing it for learning purposes. There are no sensitive data on my KDB, so it's like Lux rule. But as long as the rule is there, you set it up, you can communicate. Now we're gonna test it. Here we go, test is successful. And now we are connected to this instance. How do I know? I'm going to execute same kind of like formula. I'm not sure it's a formula. Same expression, arithmetic expression that executed on the server, and I'm going to get same result. Running KDB in interactive mode could be functional. You can run ad hoc query, you can run something quick and dirty, but as soon as your SSH client got disconnected, KDB stopped running. So if you really need to run it continuously, if you need to run it all the time, you need to run it as a service or as a daemon. So to do this, you have to issue same command. The only thing, you have to suffix it with ampersand, which is going to indicate that that service is going to run on the background. By the way, when you specify port, 1492 is a judgmental number, but just pick it from the top of my head. It could be your birth year. It doesn't have to be 4 digits. It could be jersey number of your favorite football player. Doesn't matter. As long as port is open, as long as outbound from your client allow to communicate through this port, and as long as inbound from your server allow communicate through this port, the port could be used. I'm not going to change it because I already configure my client to communicate to 1492, so I'm going to continue to do this. And here we go. I'm pressing enter in order to get out from the queue, and we're going to check the services running. There is no reason to look all of them. I'm going to just look my port number. There, I'm going to grab it, and here we go. Service is up and running. How can I confirm it? I'm going to connect from my client. I'm going to execute same arithmetical impression, and what do you know? It's going to give exactly same result. Happens every time. Miracle. Okay, so we're done with the setting service, with the communication through the client, and there is probably final step, setting up environments. So first, why do we need setup environment? You're probably not going to run your queue directly from home HKDB or wherever you place your files. You might run it from any other place, or you might run it on a startup, which is probably like more probable scenario. So let me switch my directory in my home user directory. Let's remind ourselves structure of the files in downloaded KDB directory. As we see, we have license file, the Q executional file located in L64, and there is library QK, important file that located in home KDB. So we're going to set up several environmental variables. QHome doesn't exist so far. And we're going to create new environmental variable called QHome. And we're going to set it up to location of the QK file. Let's export it. So that's done. Now we would like to add to path location of the Q file, Q executional file. Let me remind you where is it located. So we're going to add to path this directory, qhome L64. Yes, export path equal. Of course. So let's confirm that it was exported properly. And here it is. It's appended to the very end, home KDB. Okay, now if we execute Q, it will start from whatever directory we're gonna execute it from. If license file you're going to be located in any other directory, any other than Q home, please specify license file. Let's just set it up anyway. We're gonna set up Q license QLIC export. And it's going to be location of the license file. Same result. Q is started. But as I said, best practice would be add all of those environmental settings into your profile file or bash rc file, whatever you're using. I prefer bash, so you can connect as long as service is up and running. And in conclusion, as I promised, we're going to take a look at the content of the QK file. QK file is a library file, and it is translation from Q into English if you want. You're going to use all these functions all the time. Count, if you would like to see how many members of the certain collection, table, array, you use count. Distinct, very familiar for those who use SQL, if you would like to see something distinct. String functions, trim, lower, upper, search function, search and replace. If you would like to look at the columns, if you like to see the structures, left join, here it is, as of join, inner join. Everything is a function, and we kind of like get used to more or less like English communication. In reality, that's how it's looking Q. I rewatched the episode that I just recorded, and I was truly disappointed. My English grammar is simply deplorable. I've been living in the United States for over 30 years, and I have a question to myself. Dude, what you were doing all this time? I misused tenses, gave erroneous pronouns, I constantly mixed up singular and plural nouns, I skillfully butchered English language for over 15 minutes, so I must apologize. Saying all of this, I'm not going to re-record this episode. At least not right now. This video is a pilot. If I see that it has some interest, maybe then. I also would like to be better in my future releases. I promise I will try to be better in my future releases. If you would like to see future episode, please subscribe this channel or at least like it. I will KDB with you next time.